And this is very exciting. The conclusion of the entire Rambam, uh, the last two chapters that are Hilchas Mashiach, the laws of Mashiach, and well, start off as a very fascinating teachings. Will continue, God willing, today in fascinating teaching. Any any questions or thoughts before we begin to go into the text itself? We're good, everybody? Wonderful. Okay.
Actually, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Since we are since we are going to be celebrating Shabbos this weekend, well, Sunday, right?
Right?
Um, uh, I don't live near. Well, I live in a small town close to a city that where the Shabbat is, um, or where the Chabad is, and obviously I want to present the Ten Commandments to my daughter. How would I do that? Since I don't want to just read it to her, I want to be able to, how would I say it? Um, I want her to understand it better, not just read them to her. You know what I mean? How would I
Right.
do that? Is there like a site or something that I can like print out something beforehand?
So
Um,
what I would do, I would go to Chabad.org and I would go into the Rebbe's Chumash. I would print out the from the Torah portion of Yisro. Perhaps I'll try. Let me see if I can find the link. Um, and I would print that out because you have the Ten Commandments there, but you also have much more of an elaboration. But ultimately, it's the idea of being in shul, in synagogue, and hearing there as a minyan. You know, what is it about a minyan? What's special and unique about a minyan? What is you could do it without a minyan? Well, a minyan ultimately is really a reflection of the entirety of the Jewish people. When you have 10 men coming together, what you have really is the entirety of the Jewish people coming together, because those 10 are a reflection of the entire Jewish people. That's really what a minyan is. Um, and so it is not just like, 9 plus 1. Sometimes you got only 9. No, it creates a new entity. It's like, you ever take a look at a droplet of rain, and in the droplet of rain, if the sun comes out, you could see a reflection of the entire sun. So the 10 is a reflection of the entirety of the Jewish people, um, in sort of mystical dimension. And therefore, what happened in Mount Sinai? The entirety of the Jewish people came, all men, women, and children. By the way, women are included in that because, men are only half a soul and women are the other half of a soul. So they reflect in them the other half of, through them. Through them is reflecting the entirety of the Jewish people. So what we have then is coming to shul and hearing the Ten Commandments is like standing at the foot of Mount Sinai as we did the original time, all the entire Jewish people. So that can only be done in shul. That can only, or not in, well, no, I shouldn't say that. It can be done with 10 people, 10 men over the age of bar mitzvah and so on. That's how it can be accomplished. Without that, yeah, read the Ten Commandments. Take from Chabad.org different teachings and about the Ten Commandments, so then it becomes more meaningful. But that it should be as the original time, right, is only going to be in synagogue.
right.
Okay.
Okay, so
So,
one more question.
sure.
Since really we're not supposed to be driving or anything like that, what if someone else were to drive us there? Would that be okay, or is that like against everything?
So I would suggest, first of all, um, I'm not going to tell you to drive, that's for sure.
Okay, yeah, just want to make sure. That's why I figured, I would just read it to her here at home.
If what you've done till now is you haven't driven, don't start. Don't start.
Right.
If that's what's been till now, that's what I would say. And yeah, I don't know what it means. It's not a conversation for now, but the thought of moving, definitely something. I guess that might be something to think about in the future, whether that's something or not. But that's not for now. But yes, thank you for bringing that up, because that's very important. Shavuos is coming, and we want to celebrate it as best as we can. And if we have those limitations, that we don't have a place that we can walk to for the holiday and to hear the Ten Commandments. So got to do what you got to do, and if you got to do it at home, you're going to do it at home. Okay. And in the meantime, that's wonderful. That's beautiful. And, recognize that that's wonderful and beautiful. Okay. Okay. Wonderful and beautiful. Okay. We're going to go now into Rambam, unless there's another question or something that, okay, let's do the Rambam. All right. See in front of you? So we started already with the first two halachas. I'm just going to read it through again and briefly kind of give some of the elaboration of it that we explained. This is chapter 11. In America, that means you're bankrupt. Here it means the opposite. Here it means Moshiach. So the Rambam writes in the first halacha, in the future, Messianic king, Melech HaMashiach, will arise. He will, and renew. What is his purpose? So, people have, Mashiach is like a lot of different, we're giving a Mashiach course now that many of you are coming. So there's a lot of different things that will happen in times of Mashiach. But what will the person Mashiach, what is this person responsible to do? And what is the times of Mashiach ultimately all about? So remember, this is coming from a halachic point of view. We are in the JLI Mashiach course, we're bringing it into a mystical dimension to appreciate the idea. But this is in halacha, so it's speaking about it in the manner of the do's and the don'ts, so to speak, in the behavioral things that need to be done in action, right? So he says, what is the ultimate purpose of Mashiach? Well, to renew the Davidic dynasty, restoring it to its initial sovereignty. And how's that going to be done? Now, what does that mean? Well, what's the importance of renewing the King David's dynasty, which he is the forerunner of, the first holy temple, and restoring to the initial sovereignty, in others, where we had sovereignty and therefore we could ultimately be who we are, Jews fulfilling Torah and mitzvahs. So the actions that are necessary for that are two basic actions, which is he will build a temple, right? And he will gather all the dispersed of Israel. Those are the two basic things that are missing right now in order to have fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs. Then what will be in accomplishing that, in his days, the observance of all the statutes will return to their previous state. So that's the renewal of of King David's dynasty and the restoring of the initial sovereignty. Initial sovereignty is, not being imperialistic so we can have power and, have more territory and more land so we can, be a bigger, mightier nation. As I've mentioned in the past, that's what the history of the non-Jewish world is about conquering or being conquered. That's really the sum total of non-Jewish history. But here, it's that we can return to the previous state of observance of Torah and mitzvahs, that we will offer sacrifices, observe the sabbatical and the Jubilee years, according to all of their particulars as described in the Torah. So this is Mashiach, bringing back Torah and mitzvahs to its completion, ultimately, that we don't have today. So you need a temple so you can have offerings. You need the return of the Jewish people to Israel, because you don't have the majority of Jews living in the land of Israel. Then you can't fulfill the law according to biblical law, which is a sabbatical year and the Jubilee year. You can't have it if you don't have the majority of Jews living in the land of Israel. So that is the notion. It's not about it's not the job of Mashiach to change anything, to create miracles, or to change anything in the world. It's to bring back the former fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs, that when we had the Holy Temple and we had the sovereignty of the Jewish people and on the land that the Jews were there, that we could fulfill all of Torah and mitzvahs. So that's what he says. So now it continues. Anyone who does not believe in him or does not await his coming denies not only in the statements of the other prophets, but also in the Torah. And Moses, our teacher, Torah testifies to his coming. So now he says, anyone who doesn't believe in this, even though this is called what we call a kofer in Hebrew, a non-believer. So the Rabbi explains that this is put over here, even though the laws of non-believers, of non-believer in Torah being eternal, non-believer in Torah in God, and all these things are in the laws of tshuva, because that person needs to do tshuva. So this is not this non-believer of Mashiach, and the arrival of Mashiach is not mentioned in Hilchos Tshuva. It's mentioned over here because it's not so much about the non-belief of the non-believer here that's important. It's bringing out the idea of what we need to believe in, because you're denying not just the prophets, for the prophets talk a lot about Mashiach, but you're denying in Torah itself, because the whole point of Mashiach coming is the fulfillment of Torah and mitzvahs in its fullest manner. And so you're denying in Torah. In Moshiach, our teacher who brought us the Torah. And he further says that the Torah itself testifies to this. And he brings proof now from places in the Torah itself, in 5 books, as opposed to the prophets, right? Because it's Torah itself is coming to say that the whole point of Mashiach is the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs in its fullest. So where do we testify? In Deuteronomy, God will bring back the captivity and have mercy upon you. He will again gather you from among the nations. Even if your diaspora is at the ends of the heavens, God will gather you up from there and bring you to the land. So this is Moshe saying this before Jews went even into the land of Israel, that what is our ultimate? The ultimate is that we're going to be dispersed. No, you're going to be dispersed, but God's going to bring you back. All right. So this is a testimony in the Torah itself, that this is what's going to happen to us. And this is in the desert, right before Moshe Rabbeinu passes away, that he's telling the people what the future will hold for us. So we see the Torah itself is telling us that we will have exile and we will have final redemption, that God will bring us back. These explicit words of the Torah include the statements made by all the prophets. Reference to Mashiach is also made in the portion of Bilam, a non-Jewish prophet, who prophesies about 2 anointed kings. The first anointed king is David, who saved Israel from her oppressors, and the final anointed king will arise from his descendants and save Israel at the end of days. That passage in the book of Numbers that we're in right now says as far, I see it now, but not now, refers to David. I perceive it, but not in the near future. This refers to Melech Mashiach. A star will go forth from Jacob. This refers to David. And a staff will arise from Israel. This refers to Messianic king. Crushing all of the Moab princes. This refers to David, as relates in the book of Samuel. He smote Moab and he measured them with a line. Disseminating the Seth's descendants. This refers to Mashiach, Melech HaMashiach, about whom Zechariah rather prophecy says he will rule from sea to sea. Edom will be demolished. This refers to David, and Edom will become his servants of David. Seir will be destroyed. This refers to Melech HaMashiach. As Obadiah, the prophecy says, saviors will ascend Mount Zion to judge the mountain of Esau. We're going to go into this into detail. Hopefully we'll have enough time for that today, what this means. But the point is making over here, the bottom line over here, is that we have in the prophecy of the Torah, right? Bilam, okay, he's a non-Jew, but it is God's prophecy that's coming through him, right? Evil as he is, it's still a prophecy that is coming of God. And he's making a connection between David and Mashiach. David starts the process. Mashiach brings it to its fulfillment. And we'll see how in the very words over here, and that's the point over here, that the Torah is coming to tell us that there's a process over here that we're going through that will be ultimately the finale of it will be through Mashiach. So similarly, now in the second halacha, again, I'm just reviewing very briefly this because we learned this last week. Similarly, with regard to the cities of refuge in Deuteronomy, it states, when God will expand your borders, you must add 3 more cities. This command was never fulfilled. Surely God did not give this command in vain. So we asked the question, or the Rebbe asked the question, why is this in a separate halacha? If this is a proof text, the third proof text, we had 2 in the previous halacha. So why isn't this just a continuation of previous halacha? Why is the Rambam emphasizing this proof from the Torah about Mashiach, right? And what's the proof? The fact that God will expand your borders. This is speaking about Arei Miklat, the city of refuge, when inadvertently someone kills somebody else, and that is, and you need to run to the city of refuge to have refuge, right? Without going into the details of this law, but the point over here is that when God will expand your borders, add 3 more cities. Well, that was never done. The command was never fulfilled. You know why? God forbid, not because the Jews didn't fulfill a law of the Torah, because it's not only meant to be fulfilled in times of Mashiach, right? What is this telling us? That not only will I be able to fulfill Torah mitzvahs more perfectly in the times of Mashiach, right? And our course in JLI is really expounding upon that, great length. But not only that, but the Torah itself is not complete. What's the proof? There's a mitzvah that was never fulfilled in the way God said. They add 3 more cities. That never happened. That will happen in times of Mashiach. Now, why do we need cities of refuge in times of Mashiach? Good question. And that's a separate discussion, not for the moment. But the point, though, is that, and why the Rambam puts this into a separate halacha, because there's me, the person, who I can't fulfill Torah mitzvahs now perfectly. Why? Because we don't have sabbatical year Shemitah as a biblical law. We have a rabbinic law today. We don't have it biblical. We don't have the Jubilee year at all right now. We don't have the Holy Temple, the Beis Hamikdash, in order that we can do the service there. All those things are lacking, so I can't fulfill. But this is a separate halacha to tell us that not only there's in what I can't fulfill, but the Torah itself is not even completely been ever in a position that it could be completely fulfilled. In the times of King David, it was capable of totally being, that I could totally fulfill a mitzvah. Today, I can't, but there was one mitzvah that was never totally properly fulfilled or completed. And what is that? The Arei Miklat, because you need to add 3 more cities. So this is Torah itself testifying to the fact that there is, in Torah itself, there's not complete. When will it be complete? Mashiach. What is Mashiach all about? Completing Torah and mitzvahs that we have in our lives. That's what Mashiach is ultimately all about. What does it mean, no more wars? Well, what does it mean, no more famine? I'll explain that shortly. Okay, that'll come in the fourth halacha, which we speak about. No more war, no more famine, no more greed. So we'll get there in a moment. Okay.
Rabbi?
Yes. Sure.
Maybe I didn't understand something you said or
Go ahead.
didn't hear it properly. You said that during the times of King David, most of the mitzvahs were fulfilled.
Well, we had the capability.
Oh, okay.
Right, and did everybody fulfill them, or was
but we didn't have the temple.
Right. So it's interesting. We call it King David's temple, even though Solomon built it, right?
Right.
Because he did everything to, including the architectural work, by the way.
Yeah.
Including the architectural work was from David. It was not from King Solomon, right? So he gave us everything. It would come into fruition by King Solomon. So in that sense, you're right. We didn't have it complete, but we still call it his Beis Hamikdash, and also Mashiach comes as a descendant of his.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're right. So it wasn't in actuality, but I guess it began the process, so to speak.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
It began the process. But yeah, good point.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So what do we have here? So the second halacha is bringing that Torah itself has never been in a state of completion, but it will be. First halacha is bringing proof text that there's a process to this for us to, there's from King David in Bilam's prophecy to Moshiach, and we'll see how in the details there of his prophecy, we'll see the progression shortly, and in the first proof that Moshe Rabbeinu says that we're going to be scattered, but we're going to come back. God's going to bring them back to the land, right? And that is a reference. By the way, not to Ezra and the second Commonwealth of the building of the second Holy Temple, because most Jews did not come to Israel then. So it's not a reference to that, it's a reference to Mashiach, ultimately. So let's continue. Vilma, you have a question?
Yes, I've read that before, and I'm glad you clarified it, because my question is, how will he do that? Is that like a rapturous thing where people will magically disappear and go to Israel? Like, what does that specifically mean?
Well, today, it's interesting. Today, 40% of world Jewry lives in Israel. It doesn't, wings of eagles we will go. And the wings of eagles, is that planes? Maybe. It's a metaphor, obviously, wings of eagles, right? It doesn't mean literally we go on eagles to Israel. It's a metaphor. Does that mean planes? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a prophet or a son of a prophet that I could tell you that for sure, but maybe that's what it means. The truth is, this whole thing we need to understand, because there is the Talmud says that when Mashiach comes, then all of Jerusalem will, Israel will be like a deer's skin. It stretches. Israel will stretch. So that the entirety of Jerusalem will be stretched to all of the land of Israel, meaning the holiness, therefore, of Jerusalem will stretch to the holiness in the entire land of Israel. And it says that all of the entire world, Israel, will stretch and become the entire world. Now, it doesn't mean, to my understanding, it doesn't mean an imperialism that, that we're going to go and conquer other lands so it becomes ours. But what is Israel? It's a holy land. So what does it mean? It means that the holiness of God's presence will be in the entire world. So does it mean that I have to actually go to Israel, or is Israel going to be here? That's a good question. We will have to go to Jerusalem, because there's a mitzvah to go to Jerusalem 3 times a year. Does that mean then, as Jerusalem extend itself, beyond the borders of Jerusalem and all of Israel? And that's what I have to. Good question. I'm not, I don't think there's a definitive answer to that. So does that mean I literally have to go and move there? On one hand, I would say that that's what it means. But on the other hand, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe based on this, it doesn't mean that. Maybe I'll have to go visit there, though, in order to, to fulfill that mitzvah. But those are things that, there isn't great clarity. And we're dealing in the Rambam here in the things that there is great clarity. And what's great clarity is that the point of Moshiach is to allow us to fulfill all of Torah mitzvahs in its greatest manner. Now, why Torah mitzvahs? That's going to be the 3rd class, by the way, in the JLI course. So, I have to wait for that this coming week, that when I give it, to give us a little more insight on what that means, right? But this is, in fact, the point. Okay. Now he concludes halacha 2, the second law. There's no need to cite proofs of the works of the prophets, for all their books are filled with mention of this matter. Right. So he brought proofs, 3 proofs from the 5 books of Moses, but from the prophets you don't need to, because every other, in every paragraph almost, there's so much filled about mention of the end of days, the times of Mashiach. So he doesn't bring proof from there. He's just bringing proof from the 5 books of Moses. There's other allusions too beyond that, but he's bringing only those things that have a halachic ramification. Because remember, he has a book of Jewish law, not just, inspirational thought. It's Jewish law. That's what he's bringing. So there's many other places in the Torah that there's an allusion to the times of Mashiach, but these are the ones that have halachic ramification. Okay, now we continues into the 3rd halacha. Now we're going into something that we didn't learn yet. If one should not presume that Mashiach, the King Mashiach, must work miracles. You shouldn't presume that he has to work miracles. And wonders and bring about a new phenomenon in the world, resurrect the dead or perform other similar deeds. This is definitely not true. Mashiach doesn't have to do that. Let's skip this for a moment. He's going to bring a proof to that in a second. Right? Why doesn't he have to do it? Because the main thrust of the matter is this Torah, its statutes and its laws are everlasting. We may not add to them or detract from them. In other words, what he is here to do is to bring the everlasting Torah to all of us, and that it doesn't change. It's immutable. So since it's immutable, that therefore we have to continue in its observance. What he's doing is bringing it to the place that we can be in a position that we can fulfill it in this manner. Right, so in the manner of having the 3 more cities for the Ari Miklat, in the manner that all of the majority of Jews are in the land of Israel, in a manner that we have the Holy Temple, so we can fulfill all of the things that God has commanded us to fulfill. Right, so a prophet, right? Who Mashiach is a prophet, but he's not about prophecy. A prophet is about prophecy. What is prophet? Anybody? What's a prophet? What's a prophet? A prophet is someone who has to inspire the Jewish people that if they went wayward, right, that God is giving them a prophetic vision, coming and like Jeremiah saying, hey, be careful. Get closer to God. Do tshuva. There's going to be, terrible things, calamities are going to happen. He's there to inspire the people. Usually it was, about bad things that would happen, because that's what motivates most people, bad things like what's going on in Israel. They're sort of motivated in unbelievable unity amongst the Jewish people. Should only be at all times. But that's what a prophet does. So how do you tell if he's a prophet? How do you know? A prophet's a prophet. Well, because a prophet tells the future. So if he tells calamities and the calamities don't happen, so that's not a proof he's not a prophet. Why not? Because we could do tshuva. Because we could do tshuva, therefore, that's perhaps why the calamity didn't happen. But if he tells something positive and that didn't happen, like the Rebbe said in the Gulf War, that we have nothing to fear and Israel's the safest place on earth, and that didn't happen, well, that would mean he's not a prophet. Well, indeed, it was the safest place. Usually there would be a lot of people, a lot of Jews that died in car accidents, but because people were in their cheder atum, people were safe. There wasn't one person that died directly because of a Scud missile. One person died only because of the fear of the Scud missile, because they had fear. But otherwise, no one died directly from the Scud missiles. And there were less deaths in that time in Israel than a usual time. Safest place, the Rebbe said. That was a prophecy in a positive manner for the future. So that's, a prophet. But Moshiach, he is a prophet, but that's not what he's about. That's not his purpose. His purpose isn't prophecy. What's his purpose? To restore the Davidic dynasty, to restore Torah mitzvahs to its completion. That's what he's about. So that's what he needs to be tested about. How's he going to be tested about that? Well, did he do it? Did he build the temple? Did he bring the ingathering of the Jewish people? And other things that we're going to get to in a second. Actually, I'm sorry, I spoke out of place because that's the next halacha. Right, so let's go back. Everybody following me? Michael, you follow the road, but also,
Yes.
Yeah, we're good?
Yes, thank you.
Yep, we're good.
We're good. Okay, wonderful. Okay. So let's go back. So just in halacha 3, so proof can be brought from the fact that Rabbi Akiva, one of the greater sages of the Mishnah, was one of the supporters of King Bar Koziba, or Kochva, and would describe him as the Melech HaMashiach, Messianic king. He and all the sages of his generation considered him to be the Messianic king until he was killed. Why was he killed? Because of his sins. Once he was killed, they realized that he was not Mashiach. The sages did not ask him for any signs or wonders. That's the proof he was. They thought he was Mashiach. They didn't ask him to make miracles, because that's all Mashiach is about. Mashiach is about restoring Torah mitzvahs. Okay, that's what Mashiach is about. So now that we're armed with this, right, the third halacha, and everything that we learned previously, now we're going to come, how am I going to know? How should I make a judgment about Mashiach? So this is the fourth halacha. This is the final halacha in this chapter. If a king, well, what do you mean a king? A king means a Jewish king. What's a Jewish king? Not someone, obviously this person's not anointed, right? Not anointed as king, because we don't have a Beis Hamikdash. We don't have the ingathering of the Jews. So it's not anointed king like King David was anointed, right? Not yet, obviously. But he means a king who's so devoted to the people. Because what is a Jewish king? Jewish king is devoted to the people, there for the people, for their needs physically, but their needs spiritually, to make sure that they can fulfill Torah mitzvahs appropriately. That's ultimately what a king is about. So if a king, and that's the if over here. In other words, based on everything that we just learned, and now if such a person who's got, and he's going to describe what that means, a king, right? will arise from the house of King David, right? And that's the connection because they has to be a descendant of King David. By the way, anybody know if they're a descendant of King David here? Anybody? I mean, yeah, King David was just a few years ago, right? How do you know if you're a descendant of King David? So there are people who have a pedigree. No. You know how? Because some people know that if they are a descendant of the Maharal from Prague, who lived, I think it was 16th century, if I'm not mistaken, in Prague, the one who fashioned the golem, the Maharal from Prague has his lineage all the way back to Rabbi Sandler, who is one of the teachers or one of the sages in the Talmud. To Rashi. Maharal from Prague. He finds his way to Rashi. Well, Rashi lived in the 12th century in France, right? So he has his pedigree from the Maharal to Rashi. Rashi has his pedigree all the way to Yochanan Sandler, who is a sage in the Talmud. And in the Talmud, Yochanan Sandler has his pedigree given in the Talmud all the way back to King David.
Hey, wait, can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, Katie.
Okay, so the Maharal Prague, that's the guy that made the golem, right?
Exactly.
And he's associated or connected to David?
That's how I just made the connection. Because he
Oh.
shows his pedigree to Rashi. He has a pedigree to Rashi. How he comes from Rashi, father after father after father. By the way, it's father after father, right? Because coming from the house of David is based on your father. Whether you're Jewish or not is based on a mother. Right? We won't get off on that right now, but right. So he has his pedigree all the way back to Rashi, father after father, all the way Yochanan ben Sandler, all the way back to King Moshiach. So if anybody can find their pedigree too, the Maharal, we might just crown you. Well, no, we won't yet, because you got to do the following. This is the following that you need to have. So if a king will arise from the house of David, now he has to be diligent. He contemplates the Torah and observes its mitzvahs that's prescribed in the written law and the oral law as David, his ancestor. So the first thing, he's got to be a scholar. He's got to be a holy person like King David, his ancestor. He's got to be completely like, I know contemplates I don't like that word, contemplates. He's completely engaged, right? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing, he will inspire all of the Jewish people of Israel to walk in the way of Torah and rectify its breaches and its observances. That's the second thing. In other words, he's not just a great scholar, and he's not just a committed good Jew and a righteous Jew, but he's affecting others, bringing others back to Judaism, bringing them back to walk in the ways of Torah. And if there's breaches in the area of Torah observance, trying to rectify it, working to rectify it. By the way, all Jewish leaders, this is what they've done throughout, right? But this is obviously going to be a much greater Jewish leader. But that's what a Jewish leader is all about, being themselves an example of leading the proper Jewish life. And then, of course, then inspiring and compelling others to bring them closer. Then he continues and fights the wars of God. What's the wars of God? So the wars of God, I mean, we'll get into more details. The wars of God is fighting against the nations of the world, non-Jews. Not a battle necessarily. I mean, it could be like Bar Koziva was a physical battle against the Romans, right? In order that we should be able to have our sovereignty and be able to observe Torah and mitzvahs without the ensnarement of the Romans. But it doesn't necessarily mean that. Fighting the battles means, like the previous Rebbe or the Rebbe Rashab, who in Russia, that there were challenges because of the government wouldn't allow Jews to observe Torah mitzvahs properly. They went to battle. If they went to the government and to fight the case, right? Went to conferences to plead the case of the Jewish people that we should be able to fulfill our Torah mitzvahs the way is necessary for us to do it. That's what it means. That's the battle of the wars, right? Those are the wars today. It's not a physical battle, at least today. So when that person does that with assurance, consider him Mashiach. Right? If that person's engaged in this. So if you know somebody that's what they're doing, then consider them to be Mashiach. Now, if this person succeeds in the above and builds the temple in its place and gathers the dispersed of Israel, then he's definitely Mashiach. Right? Because we're talking about all these things before building the temple, before the ingathering of the Jewish people. Once that is all done by this person, right? By this person who is the leader of the Jews at that time, then we know that this person is definitely Mashiach. What will then occur? He will then improve the entire world, motivating the nations, non-Jews, not just Jews, non-Jews, to serve God together, as it says in Tanya. I will transform the peoples to the pure language, that they will call upon the name of God and serve him with one purpose. What's that one purpose? Serving God. That's what Mashiach will do. So for the Jews, it will be 613 mitzvahs, bringing it back to its completion, something that never occurred before in its total completion, right? Now, you want to go some heavy duty stuff over here, or whatever. I don't know, heavy duty is the right word. I don't know, I'm not going to have enough time to go into all the details I wanted to. I think we're going to need another class over here. But here, look what very interesting stuff that were taken away for 2,000 years. We didn't have this because it was censored, because people didn't appreciate this. If he did not succeed to this degree or was killed, he surely is not a redeemer promised by the Torah. Rather, he should be considered as all the other proper and complete kings of the Davidic dynasty who died. Right? In other words, he's a great leader, but if he didn't accomplish this, then he's not definitively Mashiach. Right? Now, God caused him to arise only to test the many. It says in Daniel, and some of the wise men will stumble, to try them, to refine them, and to clarify that until the appointed time, because the time set is in the future. So in other words, this person could have been a good leader, but it's not Mashiach. It could have been, wonderful. Now, sometimes it's just to stumble us, and now he's going to bring where that stumble took place. Jesus of Nazareth, who aspired to be Mashiach and was executed by the court, was also alluded to in Daniel's prophecies. The vulgar among the people shall exalt themselves in an attempt to fulfill the vision, but they shall stumble. So here we have about Jesus, that wanting to be the Messiah, right? But that was ultimately a stumbling block. Can there be a greater stumbling block than Christianity? All the prophets spoke about Moshiach as a redeemer of Israel and their savior, who would gather their dispersed and strengthen their observance in mitzvahs. In contrast, Christianity caused the Jews to be slain by the sword. Their remnants were to be scattered and humbled, the Torah to be altered, and the majority of the world to err and to serve a God rather than the Lord. This is what Christianity did, and therefore, obviously, this is a false Messiah. Nevertheless, the intent of the Creator of the world is not within the power of man to comprehend, for his ways are not our ways, nor are his thoughts our thoughts. Ultimately, all the deeds of Jesus of Nazareth and the Ishmaelite, this is speaking about now Islam, and Muhammad, who arose after him, only serve to prepare the way for Mashiach's coming, and with the improvement of the entire world, motivating nations to serve God together, as it says in Tanya. I will transform the peoples to a pure language, and they will call upon the name of God and serve him with one purpose. So he's saying here, interesting, that there is something of a positive nature of Christianity and Islam, and that is, well, before that, they were pagans. And now they believe, in some kind of God and some kind of idea of redemption. So that is bringing something new to the world that wasn't there before. It's not the truth, right? But it is an improvement, I guess you could call it. How will this come about? The entire world has already become filled with the mention of Mashiach, Torah, and mitzvahs. These matters have been spread to the furthermost islands and to many stubborn-hearted nations. They discuss these matters, the mitzvahs of the Torah, saying these mitzvahs were true, but we already negated in the present age, and that they are not applicable for all time, right? There's a new testimony, there's a new, testament, or rather, right? And so therefore it's not applicable to past. But what had happened because of Christianity, this is what they talk about. About God, about Torah mitzvahs, and about Mashiach. The concept didn't exist before in the nations, the pagan nations of the world. Now, thanks to Christianity and to Islam, so that became part and parcel of the discussion that would not have been otherwise. Others say implied that the mitzvahs are hidden concepts and they cannot be understood simply. The Moshiach has already come and revealed those hidden truths, right? So when the true Moshiach will arise, though, and prove successful, his position becoming exalted and uplifted, they will all return and realize, meaning all the nations of the world, Christians and Muslims and others, will realize that their ancestors endowed them with a false heritage, and their prophets and ancestors caused them to err. So what's going on in the Middle East today? Mashiach will come. All of the Muslims will recognize, and all Christians will recognize, that ancestors gave them a heritage that was in error. We're not going to do it through the sword. That's not the Jewish way. We will do it by inspiration and influence through the teachings. And that's what's happening right now, right, in the world. Slowly but surely. It's too slow, but surely it will be. That the world will come to recognize that the error of their way. And again, I truly believe this, that even those who hate us today, the truth will be revealed, and they will recognize that truth and want to embrace that truth. It's going too slow, that's all. That's what's going to happen. Just as, one little virus had such a colossal effect in a negative way, so likewise one teacher can have such an impact that will change the world for good. People will recognize that we have to serve God and that we serve him as the Torah teaches us, and how we serve him. That's what Moshiach is coming to do. Now, there's a lot. I just want to bring out an idea over here, because we don't have the time to go into it now. But there's basic three things here in this last halacha, and right, which is describing what Mashiach is coming to, what Mashiach is, what he's coming to accomplish, right? So he himself has to be someone who is Torah mitzvahs, is what he is imbued with. That's what his, what he's all about. And therefore, that's why he's going to inspire it in a compelling way. It says the word compel over here, but it means to inspire through the teachings in a compelling way that Jews should walk in the ways of Torah and mitzvahs. And then fight the wars, meaning that whatever is a challenge with the nations of the world, we need to battle to bring the capacity for all of for us to fulfill Torah and mitzvahs in a way that is in its fullest measure and fullest way. So anything that is an obstacle, we need to battle. So for example, what's going on with in Quebec with COVID, right? What is there something to battle here? Not really, because they're not fighting here to not allow us to observe, Judaism. That's not their intent. So if their intent was, as the communists in Russia, as the Tsar in Russia, as the Romans and the Greeks before, and throughout history, to not allow us to live as a Jew, so that's a battle you need to fight, whether it's going to Congress to fight it, right? Whether it's going on the field to fight a war like Ben Koziba did against the Romans, whatever that means. So that's the third point of Moshiach. What next week we'll go further into is seeing that the prophecy of Bilam brings across these three ideas and the connection, the progress from King David, how he dealt with it, and how Moshiach will deal with it ultimately. And it's in the prophetic vision of Bilam, but we don't have enough time for that today. Any questions, any comments, any thoughts? Powerful idea. Clear as mud. Can we have folks put on your cameras so I can see you? What's going on over here? Don't see anybody. I mean, just see a couple people. Katie's working with her mask on. Oh, thank you, Diane. Tim, Michael, Reggie, others. All right. Oh, wow. Blue sky, green trees. Any questions, any comments? Do we have more clarity now in the Rambam? You see how the flow, it's like one flow of an idea coming from the idea of the Torah and mitzvahs is, coming to its fulfillment, right? And that's really the purpose. And hence, in class number 3 coming up this week, at least, in our class, further discussion and appreciating how that is the case. You're in class number 4. I know my son's ahead of me. Every father wants their child to be ahead of them. So, yeah, more to come on that. All right, folks. So, Michael?
Even trucks now. I'm in my hometown, 180 miles south of where I usually am. So I'm sorry I missed a lot of that, but I don't have any particular questions right now. I just wanted to say hi to everybody. I'll go back to silent, but you have a wonderful Shabbos and Shavuos, Rabbi.
Amen. We should all have. Sunday we'll continue our learning in the morning at 10:30, and then you'll have with Rabbi Mendy, you'll have at 11 o'clock. We'll continue with Tanya. And yeah, everybody have a wonderful, good Shabbos. And Kabbalah Satayr b'simcha v'nimius, receiving the Torah with great joy and with inward in a meaningful way. All right. Thank you all. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
We'll see you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom and
Shabbat
happy
shalom.
Shavuos.
Happy Shavuos.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Amen.